Hello friends, it's Kristie Marcotte. Pretty Pink Posh is having a fun video hop to celebrate their June 2026 release. They're giving away a $20 gift certificate on each stop, so be sure to leave a comment on my video and the rest of the videos in the hop to qualify to win. The next video on the hop is from Mindy Egan, and I do have a link for her video along with the hop information listed in the description box below. Here's a look at the main products I'll be using for my card: the new Flamingo holder, the Summer Holder Editions die set, the rounded stitched rectangle dies. I'll be using this curved border, which is from the Stitched Borders set number 1. And for a sentiment, I have the Summer Banner Greetings stamp set. For color inspiration, I'm using Color Cube number 2. I recently purchased these and I thought it would be fun to pull out one of the cards to follow 4 colors. I'm using the Wonderful Wildlife category and card number 498. I thought this one would be perfect since my card is featuring the new Flamingo holder die set. This card has 5 different colors, some have 6. I'll be using cardstock. Now if you don't have the exact same colors, maybe you're using ink, watercolor, or markers, just try to get as close as possible. In addition to the 5 colors of cardstock that I pulled from my stash, I'm also using a sheet of pattern paper from 49 and Marcotte's Art Options collection. It's an older collection, so it's probably retired. I'll be inking the edges of some of the die cut pieces, so I'll grab a magnetic glass mat from GLASSBOARD Studio. I've already die cut out all the pieces. For the main Flamingo color, I selected the middle color on the Color Cube inspiration card. The ink I'm using to add to the Flamingo is Distress Oxide Barn Door. I'll add just that little bit of color along the outside edge. And I have my ink pad in a MagInk Tray from GLASSBOARD Studio. And it's not designed to hold square ink pads, so I have my little modification adding a MiniPawn magnet. Using some of the leftover ink on the brush, I'll also add a little bit of ink to the beak portion, this light peach color. So now I'll assemble the Flamingo. I'll set aside my magnetic glass mat for now. I love that Pretty Pink Posh's images are super easy to assemble, yet they're still absolutely adorable. So there's the 2 pieces for the beak. For the very end, I used some black cardstock. I also used black cardstock for the eye. I'll first add that small drop of glue, and I'm picking up the eye using the wax tip end of Scrapbook.com's Craft Pro Pick tool. My drop of glue was a little larger than I wanted, so I'm sort of wiping that excess away with my finger. Now this is called a holder die since part of the wings are cut all the way through. This is where you can add an object so it'll look like the Flamingo is holding it. Pretty Pink Posh has so many adorable holder die sets now. This Flamingo will be holding a starfish, and I used the darkest red from the inspiration card. I almost forgot to add the different color for the legs. So this is the lighter red on the inspiration card. I'll put glue on the back, and I'm adding the straight leg down first and then the bent leg in front. Making sure they're lined up perfectly with the background piece. So there's the Flamingo all assembled, super cute. So I'll set that aside for now. Next, I'll assemble the other images. This card will also have the beach ball, the bucket, and the shovel. For the beach ball, I cut the background piece from white cardstock. I will be covering that all up. There's a second die that cuts out the individual pieces. So you have both options. You could use the one piece with the faux stitching, or you could add the individual pieces like I'm doing on that background piece. For colors, I'm using white, that light peach, and then the darkest red. I started by assembling the two largest pieces, the red and then the light peach. Then I added both the white pieces. Then I'll finish it off by adding the two other pieces and the little center. For the bucket, I used the lightest peach color, and I'm adding a white flower. The center of the flower is the same color I use for the flamingo. It is a fairly small piece, so I'll first add that small drop of glue and then pick it up with the Craft Pro Pick tool. So there's the bucket with a cute little white flower. The color I use for the shovel is the darkest red. For the background of my card, I'm using the 49 in Marcotte pattern paper, and I cut it out using the second to the largest rounded stitched rectangle die. At the very bottom, I decided to add a little bit of sand. I cut this out from some craft cardstock, and this is where I used the stitched border die set number 1. I do want to add just a little bit of ink along the top edge of the sand, and the ink color is Distress Oxide Vintage Photo. I'll quickly clean off my magnetic glass mat. I simply sprayed it with water and wiped it clean and dry with a crafty cleanup cloth. Now I'll add the little sand piece at the bottom of the pattern paper rounded rectangle. And since I used the same die, it lines up perfectly at the bottom. On the green cardstock, I used the largest size rounded rectangle die. I'll adhere the two rectangles together. Then I'll put adhesive on the back and layer this piece on some black cardstock. And that black cardstock piece is 4 1/8 of an inch by 5 3/8 of an inch. Since the rectangle does have that faux stitch detail along the outside, I am using 2 adhesives. Never hurts to have a little extra, and adding the glue helps it lay nice and flat. Now I'll put more adhesive on the back and add my card front onto a card base, leaving 1/8 of an inch of the white card base showing. So there's the background of the card. Before adding any of the images, I'll be stamping the sentiment directly onto the card. And I don't want to mess up, so I am grabbing a mini MISTI. I'll open up the card, place it in the mini MISTI. I've already set up the sentiment Happy Summer. I'll be stamping it on the right side, so it'll go right around the flamingo. The ink color I'm using is VersaFine Clair Nocturne. Now it's time to complete the scene by adding the images, starting with the flamingo. I've already put some foam dimension on the back. I used the small foam squares from scrapbook.com in the 1mm thickness. I only put the foam behind the body and head of the flamingo. I didn't add any behind the legs. Since the feet and part of the legs will be sitting on the sand, I'll put glue behind that area and adhere the flamingo in place. The beach ball will go on the left side. Since the top area goes off the edge of this sand piece, and this craft cardstock is fairly thick, I want it to stay at the same level. So before adding the 3 items at the bottom, I'll put a scrap piece of cardstock behind it, just in the area where it goes off of that sand piece. The bucket will go on the right side of the flamingo, and then the shovel will go in the very right-hand corner. In the upper left-hand corner of the shovel, I am adding a second scrap piece of cardstock. Now I'll put glue on the back and adhere the shovel in place, and I am putting it at an angle. For a final finishing touch, I'll use a white gel pen and add highlights in the center of the flower, the shovel, the beach ball, and also on the flamingo. I'm adding those highlight details on the wings, the neck, the beak, and then that small white dot in the eye. I think it really brings life to the flamingo. This was such a fun card to make. I love how the colors came together using the inspiration from the color cube. I didn't notice it yet, but I accidentally smudged that dot in the center of the eye. But no worries, I'll use a black pen and touch up that little smudged area. This is such a fun summer release from Pretty Pink Posh. Be sure to check out the rest of the new products, and I do have links in the description box below. And make sure to watch the rest of the videos on the hop for more inspiration. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope you have a wonderful day.